let's talk about why it's important. I mean, that's what Google's for? I mean, can we not just Google answers to our faith? Isn't that just the normal thing to do versus that? So tell me why apologetics is important in the first place, especially, I mean, for everybody, but why should it be important for teenagers?
So apologetics is important. First off, if you back up, what is apologetics?
Mm-hmm.
How I like to describe it is simply giving reasons for why you think or do what you do.
Yes.
If I was to ask, what's your favorite quick serve or fast food restaurant, and you might say Chick-fil-A, Taco Bell, whatever you might answer, and then if I say, hey, tell me why, like, why is that your favorite? And it doesn't take much effort. You can say, because I like the sauce, or I like the menu, or I think that the people are friendly or clean or nice or whatever. Like, all that's apologetics. Honestly, it's not even a religious word. It's just
Sure.
simply, it's a term that means it's your reason for believing or behaving the way that you do. So in terms of a religious setting, apologetics is about commending the faith to other people, or it's about defending the faith from potential attacks from naysayers or others. Well, historically, as long as Christianity has had influence in the popular culture, it was always thought that apologetics was something that you leverage toward outsiders, kind of evangelistically. Like, this is how we got to convince people that they're wrong and we're right, and perhaps even draw them in. But I'm thinking, I came across a book called A Secular Age by a philosopher named Charles Taylor, and this shifted things for me. It's a term that's become popular through some of Andrew Root's books, as far as a pastor in a secular age, faith formation in a secular age. The subtitle for my book is How to Believe in a Secular Age. Like, this term to me really opened my eyes to where we're living right now. And the concept is that faith is now more difficult than unbelief. So believing in God has become more difficult than not believing in God. And that's a massive shift that has taken place, where throughout centuries and centuries of human existence, belief in God was assumed or taken for granted. Even if you read Genesis 1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The Bible doesn't even try to make a case for where God came from, or anything. The Bible simply assumes God's existence, and that's been the norm throughout eons of human history. But now, in a secular age, you have to actually contend for the existence of God, and it's actually harder to maintain belief in God than it is to just wash your hands of it all and say there's probably no God there. So doubt is what I find to be the distinctive feature of our time. As I'm working with students, high school students, middle school students, college students, everybody's plagued with doubt because of a lot of information overload, a proliferation of choices. We have access to, with Google, I mean, practically every answer that you could possibly want to find, at least at the head level.
Yeah.
And so as I think about it, tracing the shift, modernity, which was kind of the modern period, which gave us different technological advances and connectivity and so forth, modernity gave way to plurality or pluralism. So you could say modernism created the space for pluralism to open up. And pluralism is simply an acknowledgement that there's more than one. So it's not that Muslims live across the world. They live next door. They live in your neighborhood.
Exactly.
It could be that your daughter goes to college and comes home with a Hindu or Buddhist boyfriend, or your son goes away and comes home with a new age girlfriend. Like, pluralism is there. And now, because of our proximity and our closeness, it opens the way to relativity, which says, oh, hold up, I know my neighbor, and she's a nice lady, or they're a nice couple. They've got a nice family. Like, who am I to say that they're wrong somehow or off base? So modernity opened the way to plurality, which opened the way to relativity. And that's where we find ourselves. Well, the person who suffers most in our current situation is the Christian student, who now has no clue what to think about God or faith or truth or Jesus in the middle of all of that. So the shift that I think has to get made is, rather than thinking about apologetics as being something we leverage and deploy on outsiders, we now have to become the target of our best apologetic arguments.
Well, you're right. And apologetics, too, from the standpoint of a youth pastor teaching it to their students, isn't even something they need it now, but they're even going to need it more later. It's not even because if kids in your youth group are cloistered off to some degree, yeah, they're going to have some friends that are Muslim, depending where you live, right? They're going to have some friends that are Muslim, they're going to be some friends that are Jewish, some friends that are atheists, whatever that may be. But the challenge is going to be for later on, when, like you said, when they go to college, when they go to a workplace, when they all of those things that are impacting them, those apologetics, those premises and principles of contending for the faith come into play. So it's not something we can just put off and say, well, the middle schooler doesn't need to learn that right now. The middle schooler does need to learn it right now, but it may not become practical until a certain point in their journey.
I'll tell you, my son's in 7th grade right now. My daughter's in 6th grade right now. They have friends who aren't Christian and who aren't ashamed about it. You know, my son has a buddy who's a self-proclaimed atheist. I don't think that boy has thought through the options, but that's where he's at. He's got another pal who's a Jewish kid. So this is where modernity gave way to plurality. And if you're not careful, plurality is fine as long as you don't slip into relativity, because plurality is just simply options on the table.
Right.
And that's cool. So, and this is a 7th grader, in a normal school in south of Atlanta, honestly.
Yeah,
so
right.
My son is asking me all of these questions as a 7th grader. Why should we trust the Bible? Why do we think Jesus rose from the dead? All this kind of stuff. And whereas other people don't. So I am a practitioner of this topic as well, as a dad and as a pastor,
Sure.
trying to say, okay, what's necessary and how deep is too deep, and all that. I tend to probably I probably tend to overshare with my son and my daughter, and my wife continues to say, pull back a little bit. So it's a tension, though. It's a tension, because what I don't want them to think is Christianity doesn't have responses to these issues or these questions. Christianity has been around for over 2,000 years, and we aren't the first people to encounter people of other persuasions or other faiths or whatever.
Right,
and there's been
right.
things that make Christianity distinctive, and thoughtful, well-intentioned, faithful Christian people have responded to situations that are similar to ours for 2,000 years. We're just now maybe rediscovering it because we are entering a post-Christian era where we've kind of been able to take a lot of this for granted in Christendom.